Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in Sophomore English. We are in the My Perspective Volume 2. We are in Unit 4 on page 362 and following. The title of this unit is All That Glitters. Notice, read with me. For many people, the longing for material goods extends well beyond the needs of survival. What drives our passion for things? What the great poet and writer Tracy Chapman, musician, called mountains and mountains of stuff. Why is it that we long for this kind of thing? Our readings will specifically play around with this. Now, of course, the ultimate phrase is, the full phrase is, all that glitters is not gold, right? And we'll have a number of titles that will play around with the idea of gold as representative of stuff. I want you to work through the unit goals on 364. I want you to work through the academic vocabulary on 365. And let's turn now to page 366 and our informative model, our informative text. I came, I saw, I shopped. Now, of course, this is a play off of the famous line of Julius Caesar, I came, I saw, I conquered. The idea now about this one is, what are we going to learn in a passage like this that will help set us up for the rest of our readings? Just read with me on page 366. This selection is an example of an informative text, circle that phrase, a type of writing in which the author examines concepts through the careful selection, organization, and analysis of information. This is the type of writing you will develop in the performance-based assessment at the end of this unit that you guys will be doing. As you read, note this. Think about how the writer presents information in the form of examples, statistics, expert opinion. How does the writer help the reader understand the importance of this information? Notice the 8 paragraphs now to follow. Let's annotate. You have your ready, pen out, and we're going to work. Perhaps you know what became of the robotic dog, ripped jeans, or gadget you couldn't live without a few years ago. Maybe you remember when you put that video game you used to love, right? It was a must-have item just last year. It's possible, though, that you've lost track of these things. Consequently, they're forgotten, but not gone, collecting dust in a closet somewhere. In the meantime, you may have developed a taste for newer, fresher goods, such as a waterproof smartphone, designer shoes, or limited edition sneakers. When you want something with a passion, it can be difficult to picture a moment when that item might not mean much to you. A 2011 study showed that Americans upgrade their mobile phones every 21.7 months. This is the fastest turnover rate in the world. As the pace of technological change increases, replacement periods get even shorter. Let's read that again. As the pace of technological change increases, replacement periods get even shorter. Are we just fickle and easily distracted? Or are there other forces at play? Now that's the question, of course, that we're going to try to address in this brief passage. All of the data suggests that America is a nation of shoppers. Instead of saving our money, we spend it. Recent research shows that only 1 in 4 Americans saves more than 10% of his or her income. This comes from Sorgel 2015. In contrast, Europeans show personal savings rates of more than 10% over a 30-year period dating back to the early 1980s. Are we hardwired to buy? The heading. What drives our need to own the latest games, shoes, or phones? There are many notions. Some experts point to mirror neurons. These are cells in our brains that allow us to mirror or reflect the feelings and behavior of other people. I'm on page 367. Scientists believe that mirror neurons may tell us that we want what other people have, especially when we admire those people in other ways. Social relationships may also affect our buying decisions. A study of Americans born between the early 1980s and the early 2000s finds that peer recommendations influenced many of the participants to make certain purchases. People from this millennial generation are also attracted to brands connected to social causes. They wish to buy products made by companies that donate profits to charity. The last heading, emotional spending. We can explain the desire for new shoes or a new phone, at least in part, as a practical concern. After all, we probably plan to wear the shoes and use the phone. However, some of our buying choices seem to be based almost purely on emotions. As an example of emotional purchasing, consider the multi-billion-dollar market for collectible items from the past. In most cases, collectors don't plan to use these items. It's the rare driver who uses an antique car for her daily commute. Likewise, the collectible doll from 1959 that sold at auction in May 2006 for $27,450 did not become a child's favorite toy. Advertising does not drive demand for collectibles. TV commercials for lunchboxes from the 1960s simply don't exist. Some purchases of collectibles may be investments in items that will grow in value. However, others are driven largely by emotions, such a longing for a time past. All of the information we have about shopping and spending suggests that the desire for a particular item is not so simple. Our brains, our social connections, and even our feelings about the past may all contribute to a seemingly endless appetite to fill our homes and our lives with things. I'd like you to work the graphic chart there at the bottom of 367 that has materialism in the center of the chart. On page 368, please summarize really briefly in that box what you just read with me. And then finally on 369, do your quick write on the prompt, how do we decide what we want versus what we need? What can result from an imbalance between want and need? Let's turn now to our readings of Unit 4, and I hope that these readings will challenge you to think. Thank you.